I made a part one about the villains of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., about more or less the main villains of the show. This is part two, and we'll be talking about the recurring villains or supporting villains. First off is Man. I really enjoy his version of the character as he wasn't an airhead beefcake like he's usually depicted in multiple adaptations and comics. Instead, here he's presented as a real person and a character who came across as if he genuinely wanted to be a good person, but just always made the wrong choices and trusted the wrong people. Although I do have a bit of a problem, and that was I think his death scene was extremely weak. I understand that they were trying to show that Graviton was a serious threat, but I still think that it was a low-key cheap shot to do by having Man be absorbed into Graviton. Other than that, though, I thought Man was very interesting, and I'm kind of sad that he got killed off in such a way that was both, I think, weak, cheap, and unnecessary. I don't think he had to get killed off. That scene could have been cut out of the entire show, and nothing would have changed the storyline. So, in my opinion, I don't think they had to kill him off. Raina is a character who grew over time. I thought she was very mysterious yet complex, and our journey from being just someone who worked for Hydra to dying an actual hero, which was very surprising. And I thought her character, despite being cruel and cold, always was able to make herself come across sympathetic. Negga Ruth, whose name I really sorry if I didn't pronounce correctly, did a great job at making her come across both dangerous but still not unlikable. She was not an unlikable character. She was competent, but not too competent to the point where you're like, this is unbelievable, but competent to the point where like, oh, she's just really smart. I genuinely kind of feel bad that Raina got killed off in such a way, being, getting her throat slit by Jiaying. But I still liked Raina's character arc, and I thought her death was meaningful. And I really liked how Raina genuinely knew she was going to die, and she accepted her fate. And I thought her character at the end of the day was honestly a lot more than just what she was presented as in the first season. As in the first season, you just thought like, oh, she's just some girl in a flower dress. But you learn she's really important to the story as the story goes on, and then you end up learning that she's actually an inhuman, and then she even redeems herself by sacrificing herself in order to save the Inhumans, which I thought was a very touching moment, but the story didn't stop until like, hey, Raina died, but instead it was just kept on going. Mr. Hyde, or Kelvin Johnson, was another character I thought couldn't get redeemed, but he did. And it was because he loved his daughter. He wasn't just a villain dad, a typical bad guy who wants to bring his daughter to the dark side. Instead, he doesn't want her to become him. He just wants to be with her. And he actually loved his daughter, even going as far as not allowing her to kill her own mom, because he didn't want her to have to live with that. So he killed her himself. I wish his character got to continue past season 2, but I was happy that he was given a happy ending instead of being killed off, as I thought that was the area they were going with. But they luckily gave him a veterinarian. I said they gave him a veterinarian. I mean, they gave him a life as a veterinarian. They didn't give him a veterinarian. Either way, I kind of wish that Daisy at least visited him at least one more time before the series ended, and we got to see him again. But unfortunately, we didn't. But either way, I think his story ended very well and concluded very well, and I liked his relationship with Daisy, and I thought that was very intriguing with her and her parents, Jiaying and Mr. Hyde. But I think Kelvin, despite the fact that Jiaying's one that came back, I still think Kelvin, it kind of tops her when it comes down to his relationship with their daughter. Superior, or Anton, was very confusing, as I don't understand why this character is named what he's named, because the character Superior, aka Anton something, I don't remember his actual last name, is in the comics, he's a very different character. In fact, he's Red Guardian. And he's just very, very different. I don't mean he's a bad character on the show at all. He was very... I don't understand why they named him that name, because he's nothing like his comic book counterpart. And there's like for example, there's a lot of characters who are very different from the comic book counterparts on the show, but there's obviously always shades of that, of who they were in the comics. That's not the case with Superior. He's completely different, stripped of every single thing, except for being Russian. I guess that stayed, but that's really it. And I'm not hating on the character at all, or the actor, or the fact that they changed it. I'm just very confused why they named him this, because He's not like the character from the comics. Overall, I think the character on the show wasn't bad. He wasn't necessary. He was needed to the plot, and he wasn't complex at all, which is nothing wrong with, because of course there always has to be a basic bad guy, and the villain he was working for was more than a basic bad guy. So, and Ada needed a right hand man other than Holden, so he worked. Werner von Strucker, I found him to be a basic, annoying white rich boy at your high school that I think everybody has dealt with in their life, which I think that is what they're going for, but I don't think they went as far as they could have with this character, as I think he was killed off either too early or they didn't bring him back earlier enough. I don't think he was a bad character in any capacity, and I think the actor was pretty good, but I still think we should have gone to see more of this Hydra brat that, in my opinion, was an interesting idea, and it sounded like a good idea on paper, but it just didn't work due to the fact that I don't think his character was given the time to shine. Holden Radcliffe, when his character was introduced, I didn't dislike him or liked him, which stayed true for the most part for the first half of season 4. For the second half, I found that the actor who was playing him was really going for it, and his death scene was very well done and very impressively done for television. I didn't even think he overstayed his welcome either. I liked him being this kind of dark mirrored version of Fitz and even Gemma to a degree. Although I do think that his character was a little bit sidelined when it comes to Ada, but I think Ada was such a great character that it's okay. And in my opinion, I think Holden was a good character too. And I think his death, even though as ironic as it is that it's his death scene that I love the most, I think his death scene really made his character really pop, despite the fact it was him dying, because it's his death scene. But either way, I thought his death scene still really popped and it shined. Lash, or Andrew, was a character I found very compelling with his relationship with May, and even before Andrew turned into an Inhuman, I thought their dynamic was very intriguing, along with it coming across as a basic relationship. And it didn't come across as cliche relationship drama. Instead, well, yes, superpowers were involved. It felt much more realistic than that, as May actually loved him and he loved her, but they were on opposite sides. It wasn't a situation where they're doing these weird impulse decisions against each other. Instead, they were genuinely afraid for one another. And I really would have liked to see more of that, but Andrew got killed off. But even afterwards, I think May still continued on that burden of caring for Andrew despite the fact he was dead, and still felt for him despite the fact he was a monster. Agent 33 was another character who I think was killed off a little too early. I would have liked to see her continue to be Ward's partner for at least another season, as I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff there going between their storyline, but it did kind of just ended a little abruptly in my opinion with having her killed off. But I did think her death was pretty ironic, with Ward being the one who had to kill her or accidentally killed her. I just thought that was really interesting, and despite the fact that it does involve her getting killed off, I still enjoyed that because it was very, it wasn't a cliche. It was very, I wouldn't say poetic per se, but I would say very interesting that he thinks that he was the one who freed her, but at the end of the day, he was the one who actually killed her. Thorn had very cool visuals with no eyes, and his power set was also very visually distinct. And unlike John Garrett, who was also recast, the two actors really felt like they could be the same person. That is, the people were both Gordon. Also, Jai Yang wasn't recast. That's why I don't compare her season 7 self to her season 2 self, because it was the same actress, while Gordon and John Garrett were separate people. I think Jordan is a very cool character with his look and powers, but isn't anything special. But like I said before, you always need those basic baddies, and I think Gordon was a really good one. Gideon Malik, I mentioned the other Malik brother in part 1, now we're on to Gideon, who I also got annoyed with. I found him to be that basic corrupt Trump dude who's evil. I wasn't too sad when he died, although his character was needed to the story as a whole, so I understand why he existed and why he was on the show. But I think I would have gone with maybe a Hydra character from the comics to bring in on the show rather than invent one. I mean, he was in the Shadows and Avengers, so I guess he wasn't technically invented on the show, but I don't think anyone would have noticed. I don't think anyone even picked up on that. Either way, I personally, it's done. What's done is done, so it's already too late. And that's it. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.